Hey there, fellow travelers. Mark here with Walter's World, and today we're in London. You got the Parliament behind me. Ben's a little bit farther back there, but don't worry, he's there. And what we have for you today are some tips to help you save money while you travel, because the thing is, people don't realize is you can save enough money while you travel to actually give yourself more time to travel, more money to travel. So these are some actual money saving tips that we actually do while we travel, okay? Now the first tip actually isn't while you're traveling, it's something you do before you travel so you can save money while you're traveling, and that is booking ahead. Yes, we all know booking your plane tickets ahead always saves you money, but also in terms of hotel rooms, that can save you a lot of money. In terms of booking museums, sometimes you get a discount there. But one of the biggest one is booking transportation between cities. I know, for example, in Germany, if you pre-book your tickets on the train, it's a significant discount than if you buy it the same day. So make sure you use that advantage of doing things beforehand, whether it's a hotel room or it's tickets to a show or it's tickets to transportation. It can make a big difference. So use those discounts you can get by booking early. Now the second thing we have has to do with actually eating, because you're going to spend a lot of money on food when you are traveling, and there's some tips you can have to save money from that. One thing I would say is realize that you don't always have to eat at restaurants. And I know you're like, well, I'm on vacation, I don't have a kitchen in my hotel room and things like that. No, you don't necessarily have to, cook at home, but you can go to the supermarket or go get some bread and cheese or make your own sandwiches. Find cheaper ways to eat than going to restaurants every time, because you know what, when it's only 50 cents or a pound here to get a Coke at the store, and it's £3 to get in at a restaurant, you can see just how your Coke bill or your beer bill can really add up. And so you going to the supermarket and eating that way can save money, and cutting out the restaurants sometime can also save money. So I kind of combine that together. Don't go to as many restaurants and use the supermarkets to your advantage. Another thing with that is you should realize is Europe is made for picnicking. There's all kinds of people out here having picnics in this beautiful weather in London. Yes, it doesn't always rain in London, and you can have picnics, and that really helps. Another thing I'll say with the restaurants where you could save money is have your big meal at lunch, because a lot of places have lunch menus and lunch deals. For example, in Spain, they have the lunch menu, which is like a 2-course meal at a significantly discounted price that everyone can enjoy. So you have good food at a good restaurant at a good price. Here, they might have happy hours, so you can go have your beers at different times. Lunch menus, the special of the day. Those kind of things, for example, in France, you can take advantage of those and save a lot of money by having that big meal at lunch, because you get that big good meal at a lunch price, which is really good. Now the next thing we have in order to save money while you're traveling is obviously use public transportation. You don't always have to take the Gatwick Expresses and the Heathrow Expresses from the airport. There's going to be buses that are a significantly cheaper option to get places. Taking the public buses around town are a lot cheaper, or trams or metros are a lot cheaper than taking a taxi or even Uber and things like that. So make sure you're using public transport. So that's a way to save money. Another thing though is when you're comparing hotels where you're going to stay, look at the public transportation options out to them. So it might be you find a great hotel deal that's a little bit out of town, but they might not have public transport there, so you got to pay a taxi. So you're paying a €10 taxi, and you save €30, but you're staying there 3 days, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 taxi journeys. That can add up, and you lose that savings. Also, in terms of the time you spend, sometimes it's not worth it in terms of time to be staying at that cheaper hotel farther out. It might be better to stay in town to save your tourist time. Those tourist, that money time kind of thing, would be better spent being in town than out of town. Now when we look at places to stay, like I said, if you're going to be out of town versus in town, another option you might do is actually rent an apartment. I know Airbnb has become popular and all these kind of things, but seriously, if you're going to stay in a location like Paris, you rent an apartment there. You can cook for yourself. You can go get your baguette and cheese and have that for dinner and your wine and save a significant amount of money on food. But also, if you've got a family, a lot of hotels in Europe, they can't hold a family of 4 or 5 in one room. You're going to have to get multiple rooms. That can really add up. But also it gives you a place to stay, it gives you a place to do your laundry and to save a lot of money that way, and it can give you a good base so you can do day trips to go into other cities. I know in Paris, we stay in Montmartre, we have an apartment there we go to, and then we'll do a day trip to Versailles or a day trip to Fontainebleau, and it makes it really cool. And it usually saves us a big amount of money, because usually we'll go there, it'll be me and my wife, the 2 boys, my parents like to come to France with us as well. So we save a significant amount of money by having an apartment versus doing multiple hotel rooms. Another thing you might want to look for in terms of saving money is sometimes you'll have regional tickets. You know, maybe it's a Eurail ticket or an Interrail ticket. Sometimes those can be a good deal. But what I say is always compare. What would the ticket prices be if I just bought the train tickets versus the pass? Sometimes it pays off for a pass, sometimes it doesn't. And sometimes, like for example in Germany, they have regional passes, and you can get a Bavaria ticket, the Bayern ticket, which is for 5 people traveling anywhere in Bavaria on regional trains for the whole day. So you could do a day trip literally to Salzburg and come back on the Bayern ticket, and that's another country. You can go to Nuremberg and see the stuff there, and that's kind of cool. So if there are regional tickets, ask and see if there are any deals and see if you can't get a group discount or something like that, because those special tickets can save you a lot of money. Also, if you're a student or under 26 or over 60, sometimes there's deals for that as well. So it never hurts to ask if they do have deals, because you know what? They might just have them. Now, another thing about getting around Europe is sometimes saving money might deal with actually getting there and getting away and getting around with airplanes. One thing I recommend to people is don't fly in and out of the same city unless you're staying there. Go into one city, travel around, then leave from the other city. The price of the plane ticket is usually minimal, and it saves yourself the day to get back to that other location where you fly out of. But the thing is, when you're in Europe, you don't always have to take the train. They've got lots of great cheap airlines, okay? EasyJet, Ryanair, Vueling, there's WoW Air, there's all kinds of cheap airlines that you can fly around with. And I'll be honest, I would never take the train from London to go to Edinburgh in Scotland because the train isn't insane expensive. But I could fly up there with like an EasyJet for next to nothing. So take advantage of those low-cost airlines here in Europe. And one thing you should know, the closer you get to the day you leave, sometimes those cheap airlines aren't so cheap. So make sure you compare around and see maybe it's easier to go with British Airways than somebody else because I get a better, time. Because another tip I have for you for saving money is try not to get in too late or really, really too early, but more too late into an airport, because what happens is the public transportation stops and you're stuck with a €50 taxi ride, or you have something like here where you come in with Ryanair into Stansted. If you can't get a public transportation option, you could be spending £100 to get into town. £100 for a taxi ride when you spent £50 for your ticket? That seems crazy. So that's one of those things you could save, is make sure you're planning your arrivals at a time so you can get public transportation. Now, another thing in terms of saving money while you're traveling actually has to deal with your money. How do you exchange money in different countries? If you go to an exchange house, usually they're going to give you a bad rate and they're going to charge you a fee, and I don't find that they give you the best kind of foreign exchange option. So what I always do is I actually use my debit card from home and use an ATM. On average, I find that gives me the best kind of exchange rate. And the best part about using your debit card from your local bank is a lot of times that they don't have a lot of extra fees, whereas you have like a credit card, they have the international transaction fee and then of 3%, and then they give you an exchange rate, I'm not sure what that is, and all the extra fees that might go on from the stores. So that's why I recommend use a debit card to get cash out. You can use your credit cards when you go places to buy stuff, but I recommend cash. Do the debit card option because you can save a little bit of money in terms of fees and stuff like that. Now, the next tips have to do with the sites that you see here. I know you're coming to Europe or you're going to South America, you're going wherever, and you're like, I want to see everything. Yes, you can try to see everything, but your pocketbook doesn't want you to see everything because the price of going to the museums can add up. So the first thing you want to look for is see if there are free options. London is a very expensive city, okay? But they have some great free things to do, like the changing of the guard. You can go see that at Buckingham Palace, or going to the British Museum and seeing the sarcophagi from Egypt and stuff like that. There's a lot of free options out there, so make sure you're looking for those. But also, if you have to pay for a lot of the museums, what you might want to do is decide, maybe I don't see every museum or every church that makes me pay. Pick and choose the places you really want to go, because if you try to go to every museum, it kind of blurs together and also can be very expensive. So I would say pick and choose to save money, so you spend money on the things you really want to do versus trying to do everything. Another tip for saving money when you're here is make sure when you are coming to Europe, let your phone company know you're going to be coming here so they can get an international data plan so you don't get screwed with really high charges. But also another thing you might think of is if you'll say you're going to go to Italy for a month, okay? What you might want to do is when you come here, get an unlocked phone and with a little flip phone with a SIM card in the country you're visiting, and you can just top up there and save significant money in terms of your texting and email and stuff like that versus using your AT&T or Verizon package from back home. So that could be an option you look for. And the last thing I'll say in terms of saving money while you travel is pick and choose where you go, because you can go see a city but stay someplace else and save money. For example, Venice is very expensive to stay in. So what you can do is you could stay in a town like Vicenza or Padova and then take the local train in, which is cost next to nothing, and go see that city and then come back to the town outside of the main city if they have the cheap option to get back and forth, because you can see the main city without paying the huge higher prices for hotels, and that can really make a difference. And also maybe what you want to do if you're really budget conscious, you might want to choose lesser known cities, because going to Rome, Florence, and Venice is going to cost you a lot of money because those are big time tourist destinations. But if you go to Lucca, which is kind of by Florence, or you go to Ravenna, which is kind of by Rimini and all those things, you can get a great Italian experience where not a lot of tourists go at a significantly discounted price. And of course, then there's going to places like Switzerland or Norway or here in London. Those are really pricey, so it's hard to get your money to go a long ways in those. So maybe spend more time in cheaper places like a Portugal or a Greece versus an expensive place like a Norway and Sweden. Anyway, those are some tips I have for you for saving money while you travel, and these are things we actually do so we can actually travel more and more and more and stay, doing these tips can give you a few more days of a trip in terms of money, which goes a long way. Anyway, I hope that helps you save a little money when you do travel. If you want more tips, check us on our website at waltersworld.com. We're also on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all those things, and we really appreciate your likes and subscriptions. Whoa. And I'll say bye from windy and helicoptery London. Bye.